Hi guys, today we're going to chat a little bit about traces, specifically traces for non-edible fish, which are our sharks, our rays, etc. And the other morning on the beach, a youngster came to me and asked me, why do I use a steel trace? And for what application do I use a steel trace? And when do I use a straight nylon trace for my non-edible or my flatfish? So I thought about it. It's actually quite a good question and something I'd like to answer from my perspective to guys that are new in angling and still learning. So obviously every angler's got his own theories, and I'm just going to explain to you how I feel about it and how I decide when to use a straight nylon trace and when do I want to use a full steel or half a steel trace. Right, let me show you guys what these three traces of mine are that I'm talking about. So our first one is going to be a straight nylon trace, and as I said, I prefer these straight nylon traces to be fluorocarbon because the application I use them for is generally in crystal clean water, and when the fishing is very difficult, it's during a day and the fish is going to see if you've got any steel on it. So obviously I'm not going to target sharks with this specific trace. This is for my rays when I'm fishing for fish like diamond rays, honeycomb rays and sand sharks. So very simple. It's just a semi-slide trace like we all use these days. Little swivel which is attached to your sinker, which can slide up and down when you get a bite, and the whole trace is fluorocarbon, nice thick fluorocarbon, because it's summer in KZN and we catch big sandies and you don't want to be undergunned when you hook a big fish on a land it. So when I'm using this trace, it's going to be when I'm targeting species that can't bite me off, and when I'm fishing during a day in cleanish water, the fish are finicky, they don't want to feel steel, they don't want to see the steel, and the bite is slow. So that's when I'm going to use this specific trace. My next trace that I'm going to show you guys, so it looks like this. Half of the trace is obviously nylon coated and steel, and the other half is just straight nylon or fluorocarbon. I've got 100 to 150 pound nylon or carbon coated steel, approximately half a meter long, and then the second part of my trace is a half a meter piece of fluorocarbon or straight nylon, depending on what you want to do. So when would I want to use this trace? This trace I'll also use during a day when fishing is quite difficult, the fish are a bit finicky, you need a little bit of movement in your bait. So you've got this nylon, it softens up this whole trace. So if you've got a bait that you want to move a little bit in the water, this will help your bait get a bit of movement, and especially if there's a few sharks around. So if we're fishing for flatfish but we know there's a few sharks around, the place where I fish with this a lot is down in the Eastern Cape. There you'll get ragged sharks, hammerhead sharks, little bronzies, grey sharks, diamond rays, blue rays, and all the other flat species in one area, and you can't afford not to fish a steel, but you also want a little bit of movement and softness in your trace, and that's when I would use this trace. So for me, this is quite a general trace which I use quite a lot. I like it, it's soft, it's movable, and it gets your bait a nice presentation in the water. And when you get that fish with sharp teeth, it doesn't bite you off. So that's my second trace. Alright, then our final trace is our FMJ, our full metal jacket. And this trace, obviously as you can see, is solid steel, there's no nylon involved. And this is a trace we use in specific conditions, especially when you're fishing in areas where there's lots of sharks. Sharks that can bite you off easily, roll you off. So you got a long piece of steel. So it's your heavy tackle trace. This is when you fish in the evening too, or in dirty water. So it's not something the fish is going to see. He's going to follow your bait. He's going to follow the smell of the bait and go straight for the bait. So this long solid piece of steel won't put him off. So for me personally, I would use this fishing in dirty water in the evening, or if there's a lot of sharks around, a lot of raggies, a lot of grey sharks or bronzies, and you need all the protection you can get. Fishing quite heavy, maybe in reef as well. All the steel is going to help you in the reef so you don't get cut off. So this is your heavy tackle trace, and you'll be using it for that application. Alright guys, so that's the basic differences between our three traces. As I said, I'm doing this video for the up and coming anglers, the new anglers, so you guys can differentiate between the three different traces and what their purposes are. So I hope it helps a bit, and tight lines.